Hey, good morning. So glad to have you on board here for HealthCall Live. Our program today centers on new research about dementia. We're looking at this problem from two different angles. In our second half hour, we're going to be taking a look at research that indicates that exactly what is going on inside your gut, the microbiota, the bacteria that live inside us can have a big impact on our mental ability as we age. So that's coming up in the second half hour. But we're kicking things off today a little further up on your body. We're going to be taking a look at the connection between dementia and hearing loss. Lots of lines of evidence now indicating that if you have untreated hearing loss, you are at greater risk of dementia. And if you have dementia, an untreated hearing loss makes your condition worse. It's pretty interesting. We're going to take a look at that with our guests, both from the Hearing Center, a division of Ear, Nose, and Throat Associates. They have 4 offices in Fort Wayne and 11 other satellite offices all throughout Northeast Indiana. I'd like you to meet Allison Schortgen. She's the Director of Audiology. Good morning, Allison.
Good morning. Thank you for having us today.
So glad you're here. And Dr. Emily Bondus, an audiologist. Emily, thank you for coming.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming out on a sloppy Saturday morning. Yeah.
A little rough.
If people have to move on and get on with their life and they can't stay with us through the first half hour here, what's the big message? What is the thing you want people to know about and remember about today's program?
I think that I would want the takeaway message to be that there are more and more studies that are indicating that untreated hearing loss increases the risk of not only dementia, but falls, depression, anxiety. It's associated with a 30 to 40% increase in cognitive decline. And that treatment of hearing loss has been shown to improve a person's quality of life because they become more engaged with their family and friends and loved ones. And that we at the Hearing Center can help you lead a more active, social, and engaged lifestyle, and therefore keep that brain health on track, at least in the way of hearing loss.
Emily, what have you seen in patients and dementia-related symptoms to hearing loss?
Yeah, well, I think it's most important to, if you do have a family member who is sort of noticing some dementia symptoms. I have a lot of my friends whose parents are going through that right now, and I just say, it's really important to get a hearing test. Get it now while they can still do it before it progresses to the point where you can't. Mm-hmm. So you can at least eliminate that issue. I think so many people of our patients come in and they're struggling a little bit with conversation. Just seems like they're isolated, and when they get new hearing aids or hearing aids for the first time, they come back, they're more talkative to me, they're more engaged with their family, and there's so much more that they can do, and they just seem happier.
So you're seeing patients that are having what appears to be dementia, but are actually symptoms of hearing loss? I guess that makes sense. If I can't track and follow conversation and that kind of thing, I can be confused.
Yes, or it at least appears that way to family members. So oftentimes it's not necessarily the patient that's making that first step of, okay, maybe I should get this hearing checked out. Patients often aren't noticing trouble hearing. It's their family and friends. And so family and friends will come in and they'll make the comment, I'm just not sure if we're seeing those early signs of dementia or if really hearing loss is coming into a play. So we're here to either rule in or rule out hearing loss. We have patients who we diagnose them with hearing loss. They come in for a follow-up. They get fit with the hearing aids, and the family members say, yes, it really was that they weren't hearing us. Their personality changes. That's one of my favorite parts of being an audiologist is seeing that follow-up after a patient's been fit and seeing that personality change from, prior to that, they are angry, they appear sad, upset, they don't engage in conversation very well, and then they come back and it's a totally different person. They're happy, they're joking with us, and that's really fun to see.
I see. Emily's nodding over there. She's in agreement with all of that.
Yeah, I say that, and then they're talking a lot softer too. So the family also appreciates that. So they're actually hearing themselves, and so you can definitely tell the difference when they come in and they've got them on their ears. That's the first sign we know that they're doing well with them too, that they've kept them on their ears. So just their overall well-being too. Not to mention that, she said hearing loss and everything can kind of contribute to balance issues as well too. So it's all related overall health. It's important to focus on all the aspects.
I did some research and found that there are 4 theories in play about why the researchers think that there is a connection between dementia and hearing loss. One of them was that there's something wrong, physically wrong in the brain that is associated with both. And the researchers are saying, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We don't really believe that one. Second one is that they're separate processes. Hearing loss and dementia are separate processes, but both focused on something that's gone wrong in the brain. So something has broken in the brain, essentially, and it's contributed to either hearing loss or dementia or both. So that was kind of interesting. But the one that makes the most sense to me, really, is that you are not getting as much data from the world, that you just aren't collecting the information like your brain needs to. And so, as you said, you are spending so much more time and effort. Your brain is working so much harder to try and make sense of things.
Absolutely.
That cognitive demand, that the processor in your brain just doesn't have the energy and it continues to decline. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and the fact too, as we get older, we know that those processes are kind of taking longer and such, so it's already more of a demand. Whether it's a kid who we get fit with a hearing aid and they do better in school, or someone who's a little older, the older person's brain is a little bit less, active, and it's also just a matter of that it's using more brain to do more things. So I think that it's totally an issue of using up resources. And if we can help alleviate some of the issues and getting that data into the brain, then the brain's able to use that.
And I do think part of it is, as you have more trouble hearing, I don't know how many times I have patients and family members come in and they say, I see her or him in a family gathering and they start to retreat. You can see them not engaging in conversation because it's too much work. It's too hard. And so over time, as someone begins to retreat socially, they isolate themselves, they're not as engaged. They're not using their brain that as much. And that brain power starts to atrophy. It's that concept of use it or lose it.
Yeah. Yeah, what brought me to you was I found a study in Geriatrics and Gerontology International Journal, and they reported 39% of people with hearing loss also reported depression, anxiety, stress, and those things all contribute to worsened levels of dementia. So it makes all the sense in the world that would be connected. Yeah, I'm on board with that. Okay, I got to tell you, during the commercial break there's 3 women in the studio, Heather Starr, producer, and our 2 guests, and I'm being attacked. They're accusing men of having selective hearing loss. That whole thing comes up again. But you mentioned something interesting, though, and that is that how often you are involved in sort of relationship management in trying to get that person with hearing loss to accept the fact.
Yes. We always joke around the office that we should have also gone to school to be a marriage counselor or a relationship counselor, because untreated hearing loss really does drive this wedge between family, friends, and loved ones. And that's because oftentimes the patient isn't always aware even that they have a hearing loss. It's often a very gradual thing, and they learn to adjust and make accommodations over time, so they don't necessarily notice it, because how are you going to notice something that you're not even hearing to begin with?
Yeah, so I assume you're not aware of the burden you're placing on the other people around you.
Exactly. They don't think it's a big deal because they're doing okay. But if you look at their spouse or family members, they're the ones usually bringing them in the door first. And you'll say, who brought you here today? Or why are you here today? Oh, my wife or my husband. And, then our job is kind of to explain, well, what is your hearing loss? And also, how's it affecting not just you, but your family members? And we try and more and more now these days, try and get the family members involved in the discussions. So really focusing on the family as a whole and how does this affect everybody, and say, what can we do that could make you hear better? And also, how does it make your wife feel when she can't hear you? How do you feel like that makes her feel?
Right.
So trying to really incorporate the whole spectrum of emotions and how it can improve, again, your overall well-being. And, I always say hearing aids are cheaper than divorce. So, you may want to consider that. So,
well, I get that. If you feel like you're drawing apart as a couple, if you can't communicate readily, you just kind of pull back. I don't want to try to have to go through that explanation and what did you say, and repeat yourself as many times as sometimes you need to. Yeah, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. 30% of adults over age 65 have hearing loss. Most people do not get it treated. What do you think's the deal there? Is it the cost?
I think instinctively most people want to say it's the cost. What's interesting is that in countries where there's socialized medicine and there's no cost associated with getting those hearing devices, the penetration rate, or the number of people who are actually seeking help for hearing loss, is the same as what it is in the United States. So while I think that's kind of a driving factor and that's what everybody wants to link it to, and that's kind of the hot topic in the world of audiology and hearing loss and hearing aids right now, I really think it more has to do with the stigma attached to hearing aids. It means that I'm getting older. And I always tell patients, I have fit babies with hearing aids. I have patients as young as 3 months old with hearing aids. I've worn hearing aids since I was 5 years old. Hearing loss doesn't discriminate based on age, but I think there's the stigma attached to, if I get hearing aids, that means I'm getting older.
So what kind of adjustment period should I plan on with hearing aids?
Well, generally, I'd say we do around a 30-day trial and such, and that gives a patient a chance to get and see them in different situations. So I'd say it's around that time frame. Could be a lot shorter. Again, I always tell patients too, the earlier I think that they act, the easier it is that acclimation. Someone who's in their 50s to 60s or even 70s, it's a little easier to acclimate to a hearing aid than it is when you're 90 years old.
Right.
Again, probably just because the brain is more active and you can use more of its power. And I think, too, it's just important to give them time. We let them take them to different situations, because you can't try something in our office, and we'll tell you that the first thing you walk in. We'll say, you can't try it in here and get a good feeling for it. We need you to go out into your world so that you can come back then and give me feedback of what were you around. Today's hearing aids are able to, they don't listen to what the patient goes home and hears, but they're able to just tell us whether they're in quiet, whether they're in noise, so we can make the adjustments so that we can improve their hearing as much as we can.
I also think that adjustment period is easier the more they wear them. So I tell patients, if you're not ready to do this, if you're not ready to make the time commitment and investment in using them, wearing them from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night, it's going to be a lot harder of an adjustment period for you. My most successful patients are the ones who are motivated, they're ready, and they're committed to wearing them full time.
While researching this topic, I was at my kitchen table and I read something that said one of the most disturbing elements for people who are new to hearing aids is hearing all the sounds that they missed. So I was imagining, well, gosh, I hear the refrigerator coming on, I hear the furnace firing up, I hear all these things. And if you haven't heard those things for years and years, you don't know that you're missing them. Suddenly you're hearing that again. That's kind of a shock, and it might be kind of annoying.
Yes.
It can be. I had one patient who came in and told me that they didn't realize that cars still had turn signals sounds. They told me that they thought they just went away. And I said, no, you just haven't heard that. So there is a ton of new adjustments. But, we say that the rest of us can't turn off our ears, most likely, and so you do have to get used to a lot as and your brain,
unless you're a man, and then you have that selective hearing issue.
That's a whole other topic.
Right, Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, your brain also, as you wear them and you get used to hearing all these sounds you've been missing for so long, your brain learns to tune them out, just like people with normal hearing. They hear these sounds and you learn, oh, that's the refrigerator, I'm going to ignore that. Or that's the heater kicking on, I don't need to listen for that. So there is that period of time where your brain has to relearn to tune out those noises that aren't important.
So you've worn hearing aids since age of 5. Obviously, I'm assuming that led to your career in some way or another. How have you seen the changes in technology affect you over the years?
The technology changes have been amazing. So even in the last 5 years, the ability for the hearing devices to filter out what's going on around me so that I can understand speech when it gets really noisy is amazing. Now, are there times where I still have trouble in a noisy place? Absolutely. Hearing aids aren't a miracle. People with normal hearing have trouble in a noisy place. So if you think about it from that perspective, if they're having trouble, I know I'm going to have trouble too. I think two of my favorite changes in technology have been, one, rechargeable batteries. So rechargeable hearing devices. So in general, you have to change batteries about once a week with traditional hearing devices. Over the last 3 years, rechargeable has become really popular. When it first came out, I thought, I've been changing batteries for 25 years. This is not a big deal. This is not a game changer. They said, just try it. So I tried it. I will never go back to changing batteries. Rechargeable has been a game changer for me. And I think the second game changer, and this could be partially age related, but the second game changer is the ability of the hearing aids to stream what's going through Bluetooth devices, whether it's my phone, my iPad, a computer, the TV. It allows me to hear phone calls better. It allows me to enjoy music without having, with hearing aids, you can't really wear headphones or earbuds very well. So the music sounds better. It's clearer. I enjoy it a lot more. I enjoy being on the phone more. It just makes it easier for me to enjoy things that people who have normal hearing don't realize how much of a challenge it can be when you're wearing hearing devices.
Yeah, I get that. I think it'd be very cool to have the TV directly in my ears so that I'm not interrupting people who want. Yeah, I think I get all that.
Allison can be listening to music and
nobody
during
knows.
A meeting, and none of us know. So I'm not really sure what she hears me say, but that's up for another debate.
They always joke at work that if I'm head down focusing and they're trying to talk to me, I'm probably streaming music. You might want to tap me on the shoulder.
Yeah, it's usually a big wave down to get her attention.
So let's bring this back around to where we started in the focus on dementia. You told me about a Lancet study. A Lancet is a very well-noted medical journal. What did you find there?
So I found out, and they've been announcing that when they looked at all the different risk factors for hearing loss or for dementia, that hearing loss was the largest modifiable risk that could be actually modified. So one of the major things that they could actually do something about. We know there's some things you just can't do anything about, whether it's genetics or things, but hearing loss was one of the major ones, especially in that midlife range of what you could do to improve. So I think that's a huge standout.
Yeah, and since you mentioned midlife, that triggered a thought of some research I saw that said if you start at middle age, when you address your hearing loss early, you will reduce your risk of dementia by 30%. That's huge.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's significant.
And I think in that sense, it's worth the investment. I mean, it's your overall health. Not to mention that we know that dementia, obviously, there's health costs associated with that later in life, whether it be nursing homes or something. So
absolutely.
Not falling. There's just so much that can be prevented.
So, okay, so if I think I want to be evaluated or have someone evaluated, is it a walk-in? Do I make an appointment? What's the procedure?
I think the best thing to do is to call the hearing center and schedule an appointment so that we can dedicate that time to do that hearing test and counsel related to the hearing results. I always tell patients it's good to have a baseline, even if your hearing is normal, so that we know kind of where we're starting from, or if we know we need to watch this closely because it's borderline and it may change over time.
We have to leave it there. Time is gone. Isn't that a surprise? It goes so fast.
It did go fast.
Emily Schortgen is the Director of Audiology, and Dr. Emily Bondus is an audiologist with the Hearing Center. You can find them online at enthearingcenter.com. That's enthearingcenter.com. 4 locations in Fort Wayne and 11 satellite offices.